encourage you to come and to be a part of that. But today, it is our joy and our privilege to welcome Nick Lawrence to speak to us. And she's coming in right now. The person responsible for this connection is Kathy Mathis.
That's right.
She made the introduction. Thank you, Kathy, for doing that. You've known Kathy for
14 years.
14 years, a chunk of time. Also, as I kind of put out the word that Nick would be speaking, a number of people said, "Oh, yes, you should go to that. You should listen to Nick speak." And I had the privilege of experiencing Nick's. It's not just even a talk. It's a whole experience at the Sebastopol Senior Center a few weeks ago. That was on
Transgender Day of Visibility.
Transgender Day of Visibility, which was March 31st. And those of us who were there were treated to what you're going to be treated to, much of what you're going to be treated to today. So I'll just say to you that what I appreciate about Nick is his storytelling capacity, his sense of humor, his music, and his vulnerability, but there's also kind of a matter-of-factness, kind of just like, this is who I am, and I'm going to just share that with you. And I know that for myself, the experience that gives me is like, oh, permission to be myself, permission to tell my story, permission to be curious about other stories. And so I really appreciate that you are giving that to everybody who you have a chance to do that for. And I know that will be your experience today. So please join me in welcoming Nick Lawrence. Take it away.
Thank you. It's truly wonderful for me to be here. I thank you for inviting me today to the Nick Lawrence Experience. It's an inspirational comedy sing-along. So yes, I will need some backup singers in a little while, but you'll be well prepared for your role. I just wanted to start by telling you that church people are my people, okay? And I'm a transgender man. I'm a devout Christian, and there's some kind of chasm happening. And somehow, God is using me to bridge that chasm. That's what I'm doing. And when I was younger and I heard about Renee Richards, who's a doctor who became a tennis player, a male to female transgender woman, I thought that was weird, okay? And if I hadn't gone through this myself, I'd think, what is this trans stuff? It's weird. Like, what do you mean, right? But it's true, and it's real. It's real for me. It's real for many people. And I believe that the ongoing technology and science and the furthering development of understanding of gender and psychology and spirituality, all those things are moving in human beings. And I think trans people have been here forever. It's just there's no way, there wasn't like a technology necessarily to do what I've done. There were trans women and men who would have their penises cut off to have that experience, but there wasn't necessarily the reconstruction of the body. So, as you can tell, this is going to be a very frank discussion, okay? I'm going to be saying things that you probably, if we met out in public, I probably wouldn't be talking to you about them, okay? Or about my body parts, etc. But here, we're now in a real sanctuary, and the sanctuary that I consider my classroom, which is where I do what I'm being asked to do from God within me. So I am just so grateful to have the opportunity. Oh, and my good friend Carl just showed up. Hi, Carl. Come on in. All right, so. Oh, and by the way, 2 years ago, I gave a similar talk to a spiritual men's group that I'm part of, and one of the men turns out to be the director of a radio show called Out in the Bay, and it's like a gay radio show, and LGBT. And so he interviewed me, and so then I was on KPFA, and then that show got picked up by KQED, and so now I've been on KQED for the month of April and now the month of May, and Madison, Wisconsin picked up my show, and I haven't talked to my guy who's doing this, but I'm thinking that it's gonna go, and so being here is part of that. So I'm really excited. All right, so I brought with me today copies out on the table of my book, I Am a Boy. It's a children's book. It helps normalize a transgender experience for female-to-male kids. It also teaches the adults reading the book how to behave, what to say, how to do it, and so it's in rhyming verse. So it's a beautiful little poem, and people really respond to it. And I'll be singing 4 songs from my album. The album is actually called I Am a Man, not Before. I picked the wrong picture today. But but that's, I've got, like I said, 10 songs, and you're going to be able to hear 4 of them and sing along with 3 of them. All right, so what's in a name? I was named Andrea. There's an accent on the E. And Andrea means manly, strong, and virile. Now, don't most parents look up the meaning of the names they're going to give their child? I think so. So I think, what were my parents thinking to name me manly and strong? And that made me think, maybe babies really choose their own name. Maybe our spirit is already planning that life ahead of us, and we're just indwelling in that body, and there we are to express God through us. So that's what I think. But anyway, my name was Andrea Nicole. A lot of transgender people don't share their former name. It's painful at first, because when I realized I was transgender, I had a very womanly body. I was like a Marilyn Monroe figure. To say one day, like if you look at me and I said, I'm going to be a woman, you'd be like, oh, good luck with that, right? Right? But if someone, a woman that you know, said, I realize I'm a man, and you say, okay, how do you do it? How do you start? What does that mean? And so that's people, when you decide and you say, okay, I don't look like I'm supposed to, and I can't go faster than I can. I'm drawing a line in the sand, and today I'm a man. Then you don't want to be called by your former name. You don't be reminded, right? Because you're trying so hard to get away from something. But it's like a death, okay? And when there's a death, there's a period of time. And you can't just always be reminded. You need some space. So that's why transgender people don't want to be called by their former name. They don't want to be called she when they want to be he. And even though for everyone else it's like, yeah, but you were just she yesterday, it really has an impact. And so it's like the pronouns are a sacred name. They're part of our sacredness. And I really think we're all they anyway. But in the meantime, just do your best. And if you make a mistake with someone's pronoun, just say, oops, sorry, and just say, got it, because we all have to train our brains to make that jump. And transgender people will understand that. Okay, so what are the signs of someone? Now, first of all, I have to say, I'm an educator, okay? I've been a teacher my whole life. I work with Kathy at Santa Rosa Junior College. I was a director of the Foster and Kinship program there for 12 years. And I started a bunch of programs there for foster youth. But in foster care, okay, in the regular population, LGBTQ people are considered 1 in 10, okay? But in foster care, the kids are 1 in 5. That means, that's double the rate. And who becomes foster parents? Religious people who answer the call to help widows and orphans. And there's the orphan call, I'm going to help. And then we get twice as many LGBTQ youth. It's a strange marriage. And so it's inviting Christian and other religious families to evolve their thinking, evolve their heart to be more open. And so it's really important. It's important work. Anyway, so I was looking at, for a picture of a baby, a girl in the 1960s. I Googled 1960s baby girl, infant, and this is what I got, okay? And here's me. Okay. So, I'm thinking that when you start life, you're already claiming your true gender, or that I saw into the future that I would be smoking a cigar at a poker party. You see, persistent, insistent, consistent. It started even back then. And the reason I'm showing you, if you have a hard time seeing the pictures, just get up and come closer. And I forgot what I was going to say. All right, so, right. Sorry, I got to think a second. All right, let's go on. So here's a picture of me a few years later when I was in YMCA camp. And I'm in the blue in the front. And everybody, from the time I was very young, even when I wore little dresses, you know, those dresses that are short and the little lace on the underpants, remember that from the 60s? And little white patent leather shoes. They'd say, "Oh, your son is so handsome." All the time. "Oh, what a handsome, why is he wearing that dress?" Okay, and so that continued. And when I went to YMCA camp, everybody thought I was a little boy. We made a movie at camp. This is me here, dressed as the devil. Okay, I went to my Halloween costumes, and I think a lot of little girls, what are they when they dress up for Halloween? Not devils. What are they? Princesses, right? You know, it can be in the 60s, and you're like, "I want to be a princess." I was a devil, okay? This is me a couple years later. We moved from one part of Los Angeles to another, and I went, at the time we had a boy's shirt and a girl's shirt, and I walked up in line and was waiting for my shirt, and they gave me a boy's shirt. And I said, "No, I need a girl's shirt." And they're like, "Here." And I'm like, "No, really, I'm a girl. I need a girl's shirt." And they're like, "No, I don't think so." And so I wore the boy's shirt. So then when my mom came to pick me up, she said, "Why are you wearing that shirt?" I said, "They wouldn't give me a girl's shirt." So she walked up with me, and she said, "Would you please give my daughter a shirt?" And they said, "That's a girl?" To my mom, okay? And I realized what I was going to say before. It's that we know, okay, we can tell there's an energy that comes out of a lot of people that's more masculine or more feminine. And it starts at an early age. You can see it. So there I am with my camp t-shirt. And at the same time, or maybe a little bit later, I would go into girls' bathrooms, because I was a girl. I'd go to use the toilet, and somebody would invariably kick me out. "Would you please get out of here, young man? I don't think this is funny." I'm like, I just need to go to the bathroom. "Well, this isn't funny, this little prank of yours." So I get kicked out, and I have to wait outside and wait for the ladies and the girls to leave, and then I go into the bathroom. I bring this up because there's so much stuff about bathrooms right now. Okay, Kansas just passed a law, and I just made a Facebook post. If any of you are my Facebook friends, or you will be, you'll see it. I'm like, I'm going to be required to use the ladies' bathroom in Kansas. I think that would really make ladies uncomfortable. Although I have to say, ladies' bathrooms are a lot cleaner, and and ladies are a lot friendlier than men in bathrooms. Men don't talk to each other in the bathroom. It's just like, it's kind of crazy. A little bit after this, I was at a market with my mom, and this lady came up to us and said, "Excuse me, would you mind if your son would go into the bathroom and see if my son Billy is okay?" And so I'm sitting there, and I don't know why my mom didn't say, "That's a girl." She said, "Go help Billy." So I said, "Okay." So I'm like, I've never been in the boys' bathroom, so I'm like, Billy, are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I go, "Your mom's worried about you. Are you okay?" "Yeah, it's stuck." And I said, "Okay." So I go outside, and she goes, "Is he okay?" I go, "Yeah, it's stuck." And she goes, "Oh, okay. Thanks for helping me." So when I was about 8, let's see here. When I was 8 years old, this is actually when we moved, a little bit after that other picture. And so I moved in next door to a family. It was actually a grandma who lived there. And her 2 grandsons, Kenny and Mike, 1 year older than me and 1 year younger, were spending the summer. So my mother had met the neighbor and said that it was her and my dad and me, their daughter, Andrea. So I'm outside and I'm skateboarding, and these two boys come up and they're like, "Hey, do you live here?" And I said, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, okay. And want to play?" "Yeah." So we're skateboarding, we're making these little ramps, and we're trying to be cool and everything. And so they said, one of the kids says, "I'm Kenny." "I'm Mike. What's your name?" And I go, "Andrea." And they go, "Oh, that's a weird name for a girl, for a boy." And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Grandma said there's just a girl living here." And I said, "Oh, well, that's my twin sister." And so he goes, "Your twin sister? Well, what's her name?" And I go, "Andrea." And they go, "Andrea and Andrea?" And I go, "Yeah, look, my mom's Swiss, okay? And I've got the Swiss name, which means it's Andrea, and my sister is Andrea." And so they go, "Oh, okay." And then Mikey goes, "I can't keep this straight. Can I just call you Joey?" And so I said, "Yeah, sure, call me Joey." So now Joey and Kenny and Mike are playing, and we're doing everything, and we're trying to make go-karts, and it was terrible. But anyway, when I wasn't playing with them, and sometimes when I was playing with them, I would play dress up. And so my favorite game was dressing up like an old fat man. Do you? Let's compare notes. Let's see. Okay. You're winning by a little. All right. So my wife loves horses. And I asked her, "When you were 8, 9, 10, what game did you play?" She says, "I played horsey." And I said, "Right." And you know what? She still has horses. Her interest, her persistent, insistent, and consistent dream and love in her life has been horses. I wanted to be a man. I was a little girl, and I had this outfit. I had a little tie on. I had this plastic cigar. I don't know how I got this thing with the cigars, but I'd walk around my neighborhood saying hi to the neighbors, and the ladies would be out there in the garden. I'd say, "Hey, sweetheart, how you doing?" And they're like, "Are you that little girl from my name's Joey. Nice to meet you, ladies." And so I'm walking around, and people are like, what is going on with that kid? So why am I telling you this? Because there's this thing that transgender people or gay people or anybody is out recruiting, indoctrinating. There's no indoctrination. It was just me. This is what came out of me, just naturally. My parents didn't know what to do with me. My parents had a very rocky marriage. I didn't have any siblings, and so I ended up getting into sports. And I excelled in sports, which I'll tell you a little bit about in just a minute. Right here. So this young man, I'm on the right, and this young man, Stephen, he was a family friend. We grew up together as infants. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a lot beefier than he is, okay? Like, both of his legs could fit in one of my legs, okay? And I look at his skinny arms, and I'm thick, right? And I was athletic, and I have the Midas touch with sports. Any sport I pick up, I excel at. I even went to Olympic hockey camp, and I didn't even like playing hockey, okay? So I have this ability. So he and I would play, but I also had this friend who ended up moving 2 doors down, another little girl who turned out to be a butch lesbian, and as an adult. And we had this game where we would play that we were twins. I got the twin thing. And we were either Timmy and Tommy, the English sensation, la, 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 and we would sing along and stuff. Or we were Jimmy and Johnny, American twins, brothers, surfing, yeah, what's up? And we'd play in my pool over and over in all these games, and we were always boys. I had neighbors who had we had a little red wagon, and we made a covered wagon. We were all reading Laura Ingalls Wilder books, so we played covered wagon, and I was always, "I'm Joey." "Okay, Joey, come on, let's go." And so everything I did was related to Joey, Jimmy, Johnny, etc. At this point also, I went to, I had a barber shop that I would go to, and I never told them my name, I don't think. Um, but I'd walk in and I'd go to my guy and I'd get the usual. And it was just this 70s style haircut. And I did not like going to the hair salon with my mom. But one day, my mom was in real estate, and one day, she's like, honey, come on, you got to go with me to the office, and then I'm going to the salon, and you need a trim. I'm like, oh, God. So I went into the hair salon with her, and I was sitting there in the waiting area. And, so in the, those giant cone things that would go on your head, you can't hear anything, everybody's reading. And so I'm waiting, and there are these two little girls down here, and they're like they must have thought I was a boy because they're like, like flirting with me, and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? Because I was a girl, right? I didn't know, I just couldn't understand what was happening. So I'm sitting there, and this hairdresser comes up to me, and she goes, honey, are you here for a haircut? I said, yeah. She goes, well, come with me. She takes me by the hand, walks me down over here, behind the other side, opens the door, and there's this plush men's section. Black leather seats, interesting pictures on the wall. And I was like, whoa, what is this? This is amazing. And so I just said, what is this experience? And so she sits me down, and I had curlier hair. That was probably after I really had a head full of curls, and I hated them, so I always cut them off. But I had curls at the time, and she's just like rubbing my hair and my head, and I'm like, ooh, this is so nice. And she says, she's like, starts to cut my hair, and she goes, I bet all the little girls are after you. And so I'm like, I didn't even know that was possible. I'm like, wow. And so this whole new thought came into my head about what was possible. And so then she's cutting my hair and talking to me, you want a Coke and you want some peanuts, and totally taking care of me in this way I've never experienced in my life. And all of a sudden, you hear this slam of a door. Damn it. I can't say it high enough. Damn it, what'd you do with my daughter? And my mom's come down, I'm like, no! And she's like, and so she's pulling me up there, and I'm like, wait for me, And it was just these experiences that I had. I'm trying to paint a picture for you of my masculinity beaming out of my body in spite of what physicality I had. And what I forgot to tell you earlier was my first experience, my first memory of being different than what I was supposed to be was my mom and I were standing in front of a clothing store window. And the mom was on this side. It was right before Easter. And the mom was standing there. You know how mannequins, their hands are like weird? And so she was like this, and her purse, and she's like, and the little girl was doing something. And the dad was like, yeah. And the little boy was like this. So my mom and I are standing there, and she goes, isn't that lovely? And I go, yeah. And she goes, no, this one. And I'm like, no, that one. She goes, no, we're over here. And I'm like, no, I'm over here. And she's like, no, we're over here. And she got the dresses. I had to wear the dress for Easter, and I hated it. And I put shorts on underneath, and I was like, ugh, so uncomfortable. So that's what happens. People, and you don't even have to be transgender to not be comfortable as a woman, to not be comfortable in a dress or heels. You don't have to buy into any of that feminine stuff. But for me, it was extremely uncomfortable. Right? So, and like, for example, I'm taking flamenco dance lessons now. I have a heel that's this high. I was never good in heels before. What makes me think I'm going to be good in heels now? But the heels are very important. Anyway, from this point on, I got involved in sports. And I lived above the high school, like really quarter mile from the high school. And my best friend Russell and I, we'd go down there. We'd skateboard, we'd play handball, basketball, football. We'd run up and down the stairs and time each other. We'd run around the track. It was our playground. And one year, I guess it must have been 5th grade, and he signed up for Pop Warner football. And so we were down there playing at the high school, and so I went to watch his practice. And so I was standing there, and I'm like, watching looking just like that, all beefy. And this mom comes up to me. She goes, "Why aren't you out there?" And I'm like, I don't know. She goes, "I know. Your mom doesn't want you to get hurt." And I go, "That's right. She doesn't want me to get hurt." She goes, "You look pretty sturdy." And I go, "Yeah, I know." She goes, "So what's, I bet you wouldn't get hurt." And I said, "I don't even know how to throw a football." And she goes, "No problem. My husband's the assistant coach. Honey, come here. This young man doesn't know how to throw a football." She goes, "All right, come here, son. What's your name?" And I go, "Joey." And he goes, "Okay, Joey, let's go." So I'm telling you, I got the Midas touch. 15 minutes. I am burning these passes. Ugh, and the guy's like, "Oh my God." I nail him right in the gut with the ball. And he goes, "Oh, we're going to win." He's like, "Kids, stop the practice. Coach, put Joey in." And they're like, so Russell's like, "Joey?" And I'm like, "I don't know, whatever." And so I'm like, "Okay, guys, ready?" Right. Boom, right? And the kid's like, and then everybody starts thinking, "Oh my God, we're going to win." And they go, "Joey, Joey, 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 Joey." And everybody's rallying around. I'm thinking, Super Bowl, I see my future. I'm in it to win it. And he goes, "All right, Joey, take this form home, bring it to your parents, have them sign it, come back tomorrow with a check. You are our starting quarterback." And I'm like, "Ah." And I take the paper, and I'm walking home, my quarter-mile home, and I look down, and it says, Title IX. In spite of Title IX, no girls allowed in football. And I'm like, what? I was brokenhearted. Crinkled it up, threw it in the ivy, went home, cried. I was so disappointed. Why shouldn't the best quarterback be on the team? Right? Why? I was so bummed. So I had a number of those experiences where my natural, and I'm not saying because I was masculine that I was good at sports, but it just so happened that this masculine person excelled at sports. And that's how I ended up getting into girls' sports. I was on the first girls' soccer team in Pacific Palisades. We had to drive to play the other first girls' teams. It'd be like playing in Marin and Healdsburg and, Napa. It was like that kind of driving, and that's what it took. So let's see here. In sixth grade, I was invited to a slumber party. Now, most of my friends were very athletic, so when I did go to slumber parties, we would just wear shorts and T-shirts to sleep in. But this was an all-girl from the class, an all-girl slumber party, and so it was a fancy party. And so we get there, we're eating, we're drinking, we're now getting in our jammies, and we're all sitting in this circle, and I was the last one to come in, and every other girl was wearing like a little baby doll, frilly kind of thing. And you can just let your imagination go right now about what I was wearing. White flannel pajamas with green trucks and tractors. And they were like, "What are you wearing?" And I'm like, and all of a sudden I realized, wow, I don't belong at this party. Like, I really don't belong. And then they went after me. "What's wrong with you? Are you a boy? Why are you wearing those pajamas? Why do you play with boys? What's going on?" And right in this part here, in this picture, it shows you, I was right at my pool. My friend Chris, who was Timmy and Tommy, or Jimmy and Johnny, we only wore boys' swimming trunks when we were swimming in my pool. And one day, a girl named Leslie came over, dropping off a PTA thing for my mom, and she walked into our living room, and she saw me, cowabunga, diving in or something, and she saw me in the swimming trunks. She didn't see Chris, fortunately. But that started the whole backlash at school of being told, being teased, tormented on a daily basis. It was very painful. Okay? It just, because I was just letting my light shine. That song, I'm gonna let it shine, right? I think that God is in each of us, and that song is the proof. Otherwise, the song would be, He's gonna let His light shine. Right? God's gonna shine, but I'm not. And that's not it. It's I'm gonna let it shine. So when someone is trying to find a way to let their light shine, and other people are cruel, it makes it harder. And I know that you all know what I'm talking about, because you've all experienced this in some way. In 9th grade, I joined a women's soccer team, and I was their goalie. And same year, I was at a party. It's a blurry picture. But I was at a soccer party, and it was a costume party. There I am, again, dressed as a man. And when I was doing this, I took an inventory of my Halloween costumes. And so I started off, I probably was like, I don't know what I was when I was a little tiny kid. But first grade, I was Robin to Batman. And the next year, I was Batman to Robin. And then the next year, I was the devil. And then after that, I became a pirate. And I'm still a pirate. When I dress up as a pirate. And I have some other pictures for another time that show me as like a young woman dressed as a pirate until I figured out that I needed to go through transition. Now here's just a little picture of me when I was 10, and then when I was about 28, and 45, and 55. And so now we're going to sing this. This is me building a man or climbing the mountain. And so now we're going to sing a song called Climbing the Mountain, okay? And let's just do a little stretching. Okay, so let's stretch. Put one arm up. Good. Get our singing voice ready. And the other arm up. And now back to the first arm. Everybody up. Good. I need volunteers. Thank you all for volunteering. I appreciate that so much, because you know how it goes. All right, so your part. Oh, let me put it up. So this is the chorus. So I sing, who I am, who I was, and you sing, who will I be? Let's try it. Who I am, who I was, who will I be? Very good. I'm reaching for higher ground. What will I see? Same tune, good. Then I go, climbing the mountain. You repeat that. Climbing the mountain. You're good. All right. Do you think you got it? All right. I was born a girl in a man's world, felt so out of place. I played with cars and G.I. Joes, and I wore black roller skates. If I had to wear a dress, I'd go climb a tree. I was happy in my corduroy shorts and my hang ten tee. I never cared about the cutest boys or whether they liked me. My inner compass pointing toward masculinity. Here we go. Who I am, who I was, who will I be? I'm reaching for higher ground. What will I see? Everybody, climbing the mountain. Again, climbing the mountain. My inner man was calling me to a path I could not see. I could only hear him in my mind, begging to be free. I lived as a girl, but really a boy. The world did not make sense. I had to lie every day. I lived with such pretense. Nobody could understand why I couldn't breathe, or what was really going on inside of me. Who I am, who I was, who will I be? I'm reaching for higher ground. What will I see? Climbing the mountain, climbing the mountain. When I hit puberty, I really lost my mind, betraying the hidden man, evolving inside. This went on for 30 years. His voice got so quiet, until one day he found a way to unleash this riot. That was the day I knew the truth of what I had to do. Let him out, there was no doubt, to myself be true. Who I am, who I was, who will I be? I'm reaching for higher ground. What will I see? Climbing the mountain, climbing the mountain. I am the mountain. I am the mountain. Excellent. Thank you. So, here's me, about 18 or so, 17, 18. So I really, really tried to date boys and to be a typical female. I really gave it my best shot, okay? I tried over and over, and but I didn't understand all the romance stuff, all the movies and the kissing and I was like, what is this? Now, it never occurred to me that I might have been a lesbian. Okay, that did not cross my mind. So one day I was sitting there. I was the student body president. I was sitting with these two girls that were in the cabinet of my school, of the leadership. They were really dear friends of mine. The three of us were sitting there, and they were complaining about their boyfriends and how their boyfriends were terrible kissers. So I had a boyfriend, and all we did was kiss, and he was a great kisser. And so they were complaining about their boyfriends, and I said, well, my boyfriend's a great kisser. And they're like, really? And I said, yeah. You want me to show you how he kisses? And Shannon goes, sure. So I take Shannon in my arms. You know, and then we're like, and Yvonne goes, well, I want to know how well your boyfriend kisses. And I'm like, okay. Right? And so, you know, I'm like, and they go, boy, your boyfriend's a really good kisser. I'm like, yeah, huh? So even then, I did not think, wow, I like kissing girls. I'm a lesbian, okay? I didn't have any awareness of gay people at all, except my dad told really bad gay jokes, like really mean gay jokes. So I think I had like, oh, I'm not that, but I didn't really ever consider it too deeply. And so then after about this time, a year, actually that year, 17, I was still on that women's soccer team that I told you about, but now I had matured. I was still their goalie because it was an over 35 age limit, but I was their goalie. But one of the women, at least one of them, was a lesbian, and she took an interest in me. Now, you know, I think 17 and 35 is not okay. All right, so my mom eventually ran her out of town. But at the time, I had this, we went on a camping trip together, and I fell in love with her, and I was pursuing her, and I made her a little mixtape, you know. My mom's like, who are you making that mixtape for? And I said, for Susan. And she said, what, are you in love with Susan? And I was like, no, what are you talking about? I'm like, ooh, that's an idea. I had another idea, and I hadn't thought of it really that way, but I was making that tape for her. And then we went camping, and I was in love with her, and then she invited me to her brother-in-law's house. She was house sitting for the weekend up in Santa Barbara, and I lived in LA, about a 90-minute drive. And so we spent the weekend together, and I ended up having my first sexual relationship with her. And it was like, you know, the clouds opened, okay? It was such a magnificent experience that I had. I felt right. I felt whole. I felt like I was in the right place. So we're driving home, and I'm all, you know, like this. And we're driving through Santa Barbara, and she says, I came out about 10 years ago. And I said, oh, are you from the East Coast? And she goes, no. I said, well, you said you came out. She goes, of the closet. I go, what closet? She's like, I'm a lesbian. I'm like, you are? She goes, yeah, and so are you. I'm like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? She goes, what do you think we did all weekend? And I was like, oh my God. I started crying. I cried, and I was like, but I was stuck in her car, and we were going to Los Angeles. By the time we got home, I walked in. My mom says, how was your trip? I said, I'm a lesbian. And she didn't take it well. Okay, she did not take it well. We got in a fist fight, and she had a walk-in closet, and we're like this, and eventually she came around. But it was a shock. It was a shock to me. Now, why would it be a shock to me? Because I'm a guy. Okay, I'm not a girl. If I was a girl, then I'd say, oh, yay, I'm a lesbian. I found my way, but I was like, I'm not a lesbian. But my genitals said that I was. Right? So I had this thing. So then I joined the lesbian community, and I made the world's worst lesbian. Okay? I got kicked out of the lesbian club because I was such a bad lesbian. I was, really. I tried, but I don't even know how to describe it. I couldn't fit in. So then I went to a Christian college. I left Susan. My mom chased her out of town. I went to a women's college where I met my first long-term partner, and then she and I moved. That was in Virginia, and she and I moved back to Santa Barbara. And then I wanted to get a degree in physical education because I was such an athlete. And then UCSB closed their PE department, or their PE major, so I ended up going to a local Christian college. And I thought, good, because I've always been a Jesus follower. So I said, good, I'd love to go to a Christian college. But I was friends with people on the soccer team, and there were some notorious lesbians on the soccer team that I didn't know they were lesbians, and I was hanging out with them. And so it got this rumor that I was a lesbian too, which I was. But nobody was saying it out loud. And so random people would come up to me and say, they're praying for me. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you. And I'm praying for you, and I heard about your problem. I'm praying for you. And I was like, I got to the point where I didn't want to walk through campus because I felt so exposed and unsafe. So I ended up leaving that. I left the college. I graduated, but I petitioned to do some of the classes off campus because I lived off campus anyway. So I decided after that experience, my lover and I broke up, and I decided to go straight. I'm like, okay, this is too much stress. You know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this gay thing isn't real, and this is a sickness like all the people. I was going to some of the more born again churches, you know, and laying on of hands and getting this sickness out of me, and it becomes like believable, you know, when so many people who are in a sanctuary like this are saying, you're sick and we're going to help you. So it's hard to go against that. So anyway, I decided to go straight, and I was with my friend Carol at a parade, the summer solstice parade, and she goes, oh, there's my friend Michael. And so Michael was dressed as a pharaoh, wearing a skirt, pushing a papier-mâché camel up the street to the Kungas, and I said to her, if I'm going to be with a guy, he's going to be wearing a skirt. He's the one for me. And so he and I dated, and then we got engaged. And then I realized I'm not attracted to him. This is not a good thing. This is a bad idea. And so I split it off, and then I found out I was pregnant. And so I support people getting abortions, but I just couldn't. And I thought, this might be my only opportunity ever. And for me, it was like the only option was to have the baby. And so I did. And he and I remained friends. But this is me and my little baby Hannah. And this is me and Mike and Hannah. And we're still friends. We formed a truly wonderful and loving partnership in parenting, and we did all our holidays together. But we went to the same church, me and Mike, and we had some very deep spiritual connections. And we did some personal growth workshops before we had her. So I had this deep connection to him, and it's what allowed us to co-parent in spite of whatever else was going on. And that really served my daughter. Here's another picture. I think she was about 4, and I was about 25, 26. And then here I'm about 30. You know, I did try to be feminine, as you can see in this picture. The only thing was is that if I ever put makeup on, I looked like I was in drag. Okay? Like, seriously. I'd be like, ugh, take that off. So I could never actually do that kind of thing. But let me see here. Hold on one second. Oh, yeah. So we're on the right, we're in Hawaii. And on the left, we're in Paris together. And so I'm going to sing a song for you called Still Your Mother. It's one of my ballads. And my daughter has not made the transition with me. She has stopped speaking to me. And I miss her. The song is about a little girl, but it's this adult woman that I'm missing. And I know I'm not unique. There's lots of people who are estranged from their children, but it hurts. And it hurts because I'm letting my light shine. And how can my daughter be against me letting my light shine? That's the sin, okay, if there is one here. So I grieve for her every day. And it's getting better. It's been a while now. I'm in my 14th year of my transition. But it hurts. And it's the kind of hurt because she didn't die. So there's no closure. There's just a vacuum. So this song I wrote as my process song to help me get over my loss, or to not get over it, but to be able to function and go forward and say, well, I love you and I bless you and I wish you well, and I'll see you when you're ready to come back. So this song is called Still Your Mother. I just have to sink in for a moment. This song is hard for me to sing sometimes. So I'm just going to put the lyrics up in case I get emotional. A long time ago, when I was still a girl, I gave birth to you, and you changed my world. Oh, I loved you so. I kissed you from head to toe. I'm still your mother, you know. Little girl smiles and bouncy blonde hair, your eyes filled with laughter, never a care, how you giggled so. I rocked you to and fro. I'm still your mother, you know. Life has a way of changing course. The light from within is a mighty strong force. I took a turn to follow my heart, but I never thought we would part. A mother and a daughter have an intimate bond. I poured myself into you so our love would be strong. Oh, I miss you so. I try, but I cannot let go. I'm still your mother, you know. Life has a way of changing course. The light from within is a mighty strong force. I took a turn to follow my heart, but I never thought we would part. I can't bear the loss of you. I can't bear the loss of you. Now I'm a man in your mother's place. You miss my big bosom chest and my soft, tender face. Too much loss for you. And you've just said no. I'm still your mother, you know. Life has a way of changing course. The light from within is a mighty strong force. I took a turn to follow my heart, but I never thought we would part. And I will never let go. I'm still your mother, you know. I'm still your mother, you know. I am still your mother, you know. You know, there's a difference between healing and curing. And I might not be able to cure the relationship, but I'm hoping and praying for a healing for me so that I can keep going, and for her. So, moving forward, I met my darling wife, and we are celebrating, well, last month, no, the weekend of my previous show that Pastor Ben saw was the weekend where we celebrated the 30th anniversary of our first date. And so we've been together now 30 years. We've had some ups and downs, a lot of challenges through my transition. I went through a lot of changes and upside down tumbling, but the strength of our love has kept us going. And so I'm grateful to you, Donna. Oops, hold on. Going the wrong way. Hold on. So this is me. That's us as lesbian couple on the left. And then when I started singing these songs, we went to the Trans Pride event down at Dolores Park in San Francisco, and we were on stage, but it was Bluetooth speakers, and it was really windy, so it was like, I'm still, and ruined my songs. I was so upset by the end of it. We were going to stay the whole weekend and party, and I was like, take me home. I was so upset. But anyway, so we, before the picture on the right, and when we were still lesbians, we had a coffee house in Santa Barbara, and we had two women that were our customers, and they were trans women, and they were both in their late 70s, and they had been lifelong friends, married to women, and their wives had died, and then somehow they had the courage to tell each other that they both felt that they were women. And so they became best friends. I mean, they were best friends, but now they were inseparable. And so I would serve them, but I was very uncomfortable around them because I didn't know I was transgender yet. And them, as Pastor Ben said, when you see someone giving themselves permission to be themselves, sometimes you don't automatically go, yay, that's me too. Sometimes you go, ugh, right, because you haven't dealt with it yet. And so I was really uncomfortable around them, and I had a really negative attitude about them, and I thought, like if you think about men, like the way I look now, testosterone has basically removed most of my hair. And so, testosterone makes these grooves in men's faces, and whereas women have like these kind of puffier cheeks, I used to have these puffy, cute cheeks, and as soon as I took testosterone, I became like Old Yeller, kind of like down here. And things rearranged. For example, I had, like I told you, an hourglass figure. I had a really giant rear end. I mean, it was really giant. And about 6 weeks into my testosterone, I woke up one day and I had a beer belly. And my butt was gone. And I was like, whoa. And I thought in the middle of the night, they were like, all right, we're moving out. Let's go. And everybody came up here. And even my kids were visiting. They were like, where'd you get that beer gut? And I go, well, I'm not drinking beer. I think it was my ass. And it was. And it moved to the front of my body. So the hormones do a funny thing. But anyway, so the ladies, I thought, why bother transitioning at their age? That's a why bother. You're not going to be pretty. You're not going to look good. You're not going to pass. You're not going to pass. I didn't say that to them, but I was thinking it like, it's a why bother. Then, a few years later, I saw a friend of mine, actually a couple years later. I was in a restaurant in Santa Barbara, and this really handsome man was standing there. And I looked at him, and he looked so familiar. And I said, you look so familiar. And he said, Dre, because my nickname was Dre for Andrea. Dre, it's me, Max. And I'm like, how does he know my name, my nickname? That's personal information. How does he know that? And I said, Max, I'm sorry, I don't know you. He goes, it's me, Max. I'm like, Max, I just don't know who you are. He goes, it's me, Max. And right then, the light went off, and I realized it was my friend Linda who had transitioned. And I looked at him, and the first thing that came out of my mouth, I said, you're hot. He goes, I know. Like that. And I'm like, whoa. And I had all these, like, why bother? It's no point. Thinking all of a sudden, when you're on your GPS and you miss a turn and it goes recalculating. My brain goes recalculating. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, that's me. Oh, I see my path. Finally, I see my path. But knowing the path is different than actually taking the path. And so I was the principal of a high school, and I had my kids and my mom and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, great, now what do I do? And so I didn't immediately, and there wasn't really, the surgeries were like $300,000. So I was like, well, I'm not going to can I make a payment plan? So I just thought, well, I can't do it. It's not for me. I don't know how he did it, but he probably went to Thailand. A lot of people did. It was like $20,000 or $30,000 there. But anyway, I didn't feel comfortable at the time. But so then, hold on, I got to look at my notes. I'm sorry. But I did go, and I had a breast reduction. And so I went to my surgeon, and I said, look, okay, and by the way, I showed up at my appointment having just been at the cigar bar, okay? So I was like smelling like cigars. And I went to a cosmetic surgery person, okay? Not a gender reassignment surgeon, just like someone who does breast enlargement or reduction. And so it was all these ladies, okay, and me in there, like Pigpen and Peanuts, reeking of cigars. And he's like, may I help you? And I'm like, yeah. And so I went and I got a reduction down from like a D, double D, triple D to A minus. And so, which was great. And I told him, this is my version of a sex change operation. And so later, when I actually transitioned, you had, at the time, trans women had to have had bottom surgery, meaning removing their penis and making a vagina, in order to be able to qualify for changing your gender documents. but trans men, there was no viable way of making a penis at the time. So all you needed was to have chest surgery to qualify as being a man. And so I went to him, I said, do you remember when I said it's my version? And he said, yeah. I said, will you write that in a letter? He said, okay. I doubt it'll work because I do this other thing. I said, don't worry, just write it down. And it was accepted. So I was one of the early people that got my birth certificate, my driver's license, passport, everything changed to male. And it's really necessary because if I had my old driver's license and I got stopped for something or I have to check in somewhere and it says female and I'm this way, now I'm outed to that person. And it can be very dangerous, especially in Kansas and other places. So, let's see here. So then I was the last person hired in the school district that I was working in as a principal, and then the crash of 2009-10 happened, and I was the first person to be let go. So I was looking for a job, and people with up to 10 years of tenure, teachers with up to 10 years of tenure were getting let go. So a friend of mine worked in Houston in the roofing business, and he needed a back office person. And I thought, good, I'm going to be going through all these changes, I'll be hidden in the back office. And so I went to Houston, and it turns out that Houston, Texas, has the largest and most well-organized transgender community in the entire world. And I was like, thank you, God, for putting me in the right direction. And so I went there, and Donna eventually joined me. But when I got settled there, and then on my way home to pick up Donna and our daughter Madeline, we had a little family get-together at a beach. And so we have a few foster kids. We fostered for a long time. So one of my foster daughters was with me, and we stopped. Now, I need to tell you that when you start to transition, okay, like imagine if you're a man and you want to present as a woman, what would you do? You'd probably put something up here, right? You'd put a bra here and you'd put something in there so that you'd have a female figure. Okay, well, same thing happens in reverse. So if you have breasts, you wear a binder so that you conceal, but then you want to put something right down here. It's called the basket, okay? You want it to be just right. You don't want it to be like nothing there because you want to have a presence, okay? So trans men often get something called a packer, okay? Now, it's not a dildo, it's a packer. It's a little softy penis and testicles, and you just stick it in your underwear, and then you have this little basket right there. So let me just ask you, okay, everybody here, when you go and sit down on the toilet and you pull your pants down, do you worry about anything falling out? No, right? Okay, well, I would forget that I had something extra in my underpants, and so I'd sit down and I have to, darn it. So I started wearing a jock strap to hold this little packer in, except it's not really like a pouch, okay? So I'd still forget. And so one time it wasn't on the way to back home, but one time I was in Texas, and I was getting my gender documents there, and I was in a public restroom, and I completely forgot. And somehow I sat down, and the strap of the jock strap, it was like a slingshot. And my packer landed between, where the wall is between your toilet stall and the next one. And it landed like right in the middle. And I'm like, I go, I'm sure nobody's next door. So I look under, and there's these 2 feet, and this guy, men in bathrooms, they let their pants go all the way down to the ground, okay? Like, no lady would ever do that. Pants all the way in the ground, and I'm like with my foot, and I'm trying to get it, and I accidentally, it goes farther over, and I'm like, so I'm like, I go, excuse me, do you mind? Because I had a really high voice at the time. I couldn't say, excuse me. Excuse me, do you mind? He goes, oh. Thanks. Go to the sink, I'm like, and this guy comes out, and he's like, I ran. So this packer thing is like, it's so irritating. Um, and so then I'm driving to California from Texas. I've got my big daughter, my little daughter, family. They're all meeting us at the park. And so I'm an ocean person. I grew up in Los Angeles. I love the ocean. I get there. I go running down the beach. I've got my clothes on. I don't care. I just ride. I dive in. I'm like, oh, yay. And then, of course, I got sand in my pants and everything. And so I say to Donna, I'm going to go change, and I'll be right back. So I go to the car, I take my packer out, and I roll it up in the towel, and I put it under the seat, and I change my clothes, and I come back for because I forgot a second pair of special kind of underwear for it. And so, anyway, Madeline's swimming, our 8-year-old, and then Donna says, honey, Madeline's cold. Would you mind going and getting her changed? Oh, I don't mind. So I take her to the car, completely forget that my packer is in the towel, and I go, oh, here's the towel, honey, and I go, like this. And then it goes, whoa, slow motion across the parking lot, and then lands and bounces. And then that 1970s station wagon goes, I'm like, no, and like slow motion, right? And then I was like one of those Wimbledon ball boys that run across the net, and I'm like that. And so who thinks about their genitals falling out, okay? Nobody. This is why the surgeries are so important, okay, to avoid this kind of embarrassment. All right, so I was in Houston. You're supposed to live in those days. It's changed now. But in those days, you had to live a whole year as the opposite gender in order to start your treatment. How are you supposed to do that? Okay? Think of all of you pretending, you're now, not pretending, but in a sense, pretending to be the opposite gender. And all you ladies are going to go in the men's, hey, I'm in the men's room. Like, how do you do that? It's dangerous. And so those laws changed. Sorry. So anyway, right. So finally I got permission, and I got my testosterone. And I was at home. I was taking my first shot. I was like, wonder what's going to happen. All this manhood coming at me. And so I took the syringe, and I was a lot heavier then. I jammed it in my thigh. And then I waited. Waited a little longer. My adult daughter, who was visiting with me, she's like, you know, I'm like, I guess nothing. All of a sudden, I felt this boom, 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 boom. I was like, whoa, boom, boom, boom. I was like, whoa, I feel like lifting weights. And I was like, oh. And then it travels over here, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, oh, wow. It's going through my body, and all of a sudden it goes boom, 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 right here in my groin. And I was like, wow. And I felt like I had ingested rocket fuel. Okay, rocket fuel. It was so strong. It was this much. And it was so strong and so intense in my body that my first thought was, men are saints. I see the men are all like, secretly, they're like, yeah, right. Okay, and the ladies are like, forget it. It was so strong. I thought, oh my gosh. I was so overcome. There's no other way to say this. It made me so horny right then, this incredible testosterone, that I thought, why aren't men out humping everything? And then I thought, wait a minute, they are. It's not their fault. It's in this little bottle. It's called testosterone. When I tell this story, and it's mostly men in the audience, they're like, yes, right. And mostly women, they're like, kind of like. It's true. Testosterone is a force to be reckoned with. So anyway, so I came home, and in 2013, skipping over 2013, Medi-Cal decided that transgender surgeries were necessary. And so every insurance had to cover it, which was a huge change, and it allowed me to go in, and which I never was going to get really anything. But I had this female chest that my surgeon gave me, that I told you about, But then I was qualified to have a revision and have a male chest. And actually, it was before 2013. I wrote an essay, and I won a surgery. So I was one of the people that got this very special surgeon. I got a chest surgery from him. But then I was able to get the rest of the surgeries. And that includes, I had a vaginectomy, and so they removed my vagina. I had an oophorectomy. They took out my ovaries. I made a penis or a phallus out of my leg. And you had a choice of arm or leg, and it's really intense. They take this huge swatch of tissue off of you. And I was a teacher, and I didn't want to have a conversation starter all the time on my arm. So I used this chunk of my leg here. And if you imagine making a jelly roll, a piece of cloth or a piece of skin like this, you roll over the first edge, and then you sew it like you're making a straw, right? That's my urethra, my new urethra. And then from there, they rolled it like a jelly roll, and they sewed it on. And with microsurgery, they can take, first of all, in the leg, anywhere in your body really, you have these tunnels for your nerves. They're called nerve sheaths. So when they sew it on, they use microsurgery, and they take the nerves that are in the clitoris, and they attach them to the nerve tunnels, and in 9 to 10 months, the nerves grow the length of the phallus. So I have complete sensation in my phallus. I don't have erectile tissue, and so I have to use a special kind of tape if I want to have an erection, and so it works great. I can have an orgasm, and for trans women, they remove the spongy material in the penis. That's what gives an erection. It engorges with blood. They remove the spongy material, so it'd be like having an empty balloon. And then they create a little hole at the bottom, and they invert it. And all the sensation of the penis is on the inside now, like a vagina. And it works so well for trans women that they call it the I can't believe it's not a vagina. So convincing. And the surgeries for trans men, the phallus now it's not perfect, but it works, and it's an amazing experience. And my surgeon asked me why I wanted the phalloplasty. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, why do you want it? A lot of guys just want to be able to stand to pee. And I said, well, that wasn't my first choice. But I'd like that too. And so there's lots of options of whether you have a urethra, because the women's urethra is very short. So then you have to have a surgery, taking your short urethra and attaching it to your long urethra. So there's a little surgery right here. And the scar tissue tends to shrink tissue. So it's dangerous. It's like a really difficult operation to make sure that it stays open and you don't need emergency surgery so that you can urinate. So there's all these things that you have to think about. And I have to say, I never want another surgery, okay? Like, oh my God, too many surgeries, too many issues, too many problems. But now that it's all done, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. All right. So I'm going to sing you, let me sing a song before we do that. Okay, actually, I'll sing it now. But I want to say something about athletes. Okay, now this is the same person. Okay, same person, different hormone. Okay, same person, different hormone. So if this person wants to play on that person's team, this person has to have a reduction of testosterone, right? If this person shows up and says, I'm that, internally they are, okay? But it may be like in the Olympics where they monitor how much of steroids, things like that. Testosterone is considered a steroid. So you can see that there's an advantage at first. This person's completely on testosterone. But minus the testosterone, this person starts to look like that person. So I think whoever they are, it's fine. We're just going to monitor the estrogen and the testosterone, and it's solved. Because the height doesn't matter. The size doesn't matter. There are tall women in the world. There are short women. There are tall men. There are short men. So really, it's mostly about the hormone. All right. See, I have no idea where we are on time. Okay, very good. All right, we're almost done. So now I've got a song for you that's probably my most controversial song, but it's and you all get to be my backup singers. It's meant to be a celebration of God. Okay, so please take it in that realm. All right, so now you are all on stage. We're at the Jazz Blues Lounge. You're all, my backup singers, you're all wearing your black sequin outfit, however you want that sequin outfit to be. And we've got the stand-up bass, and it's jamming, okay? And so we got this little swing going, you know, like this, and you're shaking your hips back and forth as you sing my backup, okay? So the song goes, it goes, da-da-da-da-da-da, yesterday, yesterday, da-da-da-da-da-da, yesterday, yesterday. Very good. And later at the end, I go, yes, I do, and you say, yes, I do. All right? Okay. All right. That's it. I got my dong sewn on yesterday. I got my dong sewn on yesterday. I got my dong sewn on. It's nice and long. Real soon I'm gonna get it on. I got my dong sewn on yesterday. I got my nuts installed yesterday. I got my nuts installed yesterday. I got my nuts installed. I got 2 hairy balls. Real soon I'll be balls to the wall. I got my nuts installed yesterday. I got my rods put in yesterday. I got my rods put in yesterday. I got my rods put in, got a big silly grin. Oh baby, I'm a-coming in. I got my rods put in yesterday. I got the 3-in-1. Oh yes I do. I got the 3-in-1. Oh, yes, I do. I got the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost right where I need them most. I got the 3-in-1. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Everybody from the top. I got my dong sewn on. Sing along. Yesterday, yesterday, I got my dong sewn on. Yesterday, yesterday, I got my dong sewn on. It's nice and long. Real soon I'm gonna get it on. I got my dong sewn on. Yesterday, yesterday. Everybody's like, no. Yesterday. You know, tell you the truth. Being a lover as a man is like the spice of life. And it feels different than when I was a woman. And I wouldn't trade anything for it. And that's why I have to sing that crazy song. Because it's just true. All right. So we've covered that. And so now, just to show you pictures of me and the persistent, insistent, and consistent wearing of a tuxedo. So 8, 14, 25, 35, 45, 50, 55, 60. I know we're a little bit over on time because we're going to go, we have time for questions now. I have another song, but I'll see if if there's time for it. Okay? Okay, yeah, please do. You have a chance now to ask me any question that you want to ask. It can be about me personally, it can be about trans, anything. But I think it's important to have trans people that you can just say, okay, look, I don't understand what's this or what's that or anything. So please ask any question.
And I'm going to bring you the microphone because we're also live streaming this, and they need to hear it over the microphone if they're going to hear your question at all. So I'm going to bring it back to Lori.
Hi.
Hi there.
Thank you so much.
You're
I think
welcome.
I actually did meet you at the JC like 10 years ago, but it's now that you're saying you worked there. But this is interesting timing because I just was looking at a flyer that I get from retirees of the county of Sonoma, and there was a name in there of a woman, and I was like, oh my God, I know her. So I looked her up because I was like, she has a name that's kind of whatever, common, and so I'm like, I wonder if it's her. And so I looked it up, and it was indeed her, and it was a woman who had transitioned, who I had worked with, and like you're saying, she transitioned when she was about 50. And we worked at the Housing Authority, and it was 20-something years ago. And I had, actually it was almost 20, because she was born, so I was out on maternity leave when she transitioned, so when I came back, she was her and not him. Mm-hmm. And just like you're saying, she was this woman for Halloween every year that we were like, oh my God, Carol, how do you, like, I couldn't, I mean, I couldn't wear the makeup, I couldn't do the nails. We were like, you do this woman so well at Halloween every year.
Right.
And so this was the, kind of the early 2000s. And so that was her way of expressing herself. And then finally at 50, she was like, I'm doing it. And the same as you, she had a wife and still had the wife, and she just died. She was 74, and still had the same wife. So it's just really kind of kismet that you're having this talk now, and it's that it's never too late. This kind of the point.
Exactly.
For you and your life.
Yeah, and I have to say that on my wife's behalf, not every trans person's partner is accepting. And I mean, for some lesbians, being a lesbian is part of their identity. And now, like I'm not a lesbian anymore. I mean, I never really was, but I'm not in female form. And fortunately, my wife is open-hearted and is more bisexual, and she dated men and she dated women, and so she got a twofer, okay? She got a twofer. Halfway in, she's like, you know what? Let's do this. Someone else.
We have another question here.
It's more of a reaffirmation. I've known you for a while, Nick, and I didn't really know your story well. I knew that it happened, but it wasn't real. And now you've given it to us so well. I am so glad. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question, and then I'm gonna come here. Kind of a theological question.
All right.
I wonder what you would say to someone, and I don't think this, but I've certainly heard this argument. What if somebody were to say, well, if God had wanted you to be a man, God would have made you a man, would have given you the biological sex of a man to begin with? Well, theologically speaking, like, how would you respond to that?
That's a great question. And, I wanted to I'll answer that in two ways. One is that when I was going through, first of all, whether you like my dong song or not, okay, it's really a spiritual song for me. And my album is full of the great I am. I have a song called The Great I Am. The I am is permeating through my whole album, okay? So that's number one. Number two, there are a lot of intersex people, okay? There are more people than you realize that have ambiguous genitals, that are born partial female, partial male. And sometimes you don't know it until the person hits puberty. For example, somebody could be born female, genitalia on the outside, but it turns out that one of their ovaries is still a testicle, or is a testicle. So for example, when you're conceived, okay, when we are conceived, we are all in female form, all of us. And then if you have, that's XX, which is what I am. If you're XY, the tip of the Y chromosome has testosterone in it. And at about 9 weeks in the gestation, the testosterone gets released. And that's like a cloud, okay? And so it's like the baby's going on a train track. And then they stop at this station, and if there's testosterone, they get the testosterone, and that takes what's inside, which is ovaries and vagina, and moves it outside. Okay? The testicles and penis. It's the same material. And so if you're XY, some people have a sensitivity where they can't absorb the testosterone, so they're XY, but they present female. Or if there's this cloud, let's say that the train is coming, and the cloud gets released early, and it starts dissipating before the baby gets there. They don't get the full dose, or they get the tail end of it. Sometimes you get all of it. Sometimes you get part of it. That all affects how your genitals turn out. So what you're saying is from a very scientifically removed an assumption that men look this way and women look that way. And the fact of the matter is that if we all stood around here naked, okay, we'd be like, wow, there's a lot of diversity in here, okay? There's a ton of diversity. And so it really is understanding that our bodies, our bodies are ancient. They're ancient beings, okay? For some of us more than others. I wasn't talking about you right now, sweetheart, but the making of human beings is what I'm saying is an ancient process. And so there's a luck of the draw in terms of cancer and different malformations, deformations. And so, my point is that I was born with a birth defect. Okay, that's it. You wouldn't say, if I had a cleft palate or a whatever, a lazy eye or whatever, it'd be like, boy, let's fix that. Wait, what?
You need glasses.
Yeah, need glasses. Right. Right. So no one would say, oh, don't have that done. How could you? If God made you blind, not blind, but I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful to blind people. I mean that your eyes aren't perfectly working. God made you that way, so just accept it. We would say, why? We have technology now. God gave us the technology to help people shine their light. So the whole point, if you take the perspective, we're here to shine everybody's light. Is your light shining? Is your light shining? How about you? Is your light shining? What can we do? Okay, here's the list. We're going to get everybody's light shining. That's how I'd answer the question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Let's go to Daphne, and then we'll go to Judy.
I was wondering how we could find your program on KQED. What is the name of it, or how would we know when you're going to be on?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm on a random playlist for KQED, but what I will do is I will send Pastor Ben the link to it. Or you can look up KQED, Nick Lawrence, FTM, and that's female to male. And if you look that up, the show will pop up. I'd love it if you'd listen to my interview because it's different than this live show, and different questions and a lot more about spirituality in the show. Someone else.
Okay, hi. Thank you for your presentation. Now that you're showing your true self on the outside of you and presenting as a man, so I take it you feel much more like you match on the inside and outside now? But how do you deal as a man? Like, if I put myself in your shoes, I see myself getting in trouble all the time and possibly getting dead over my opinions. Because how do you deal with the misogyny portion of the man show as formerly a woman, understanding how that might affect people? How do you live this way and not address that being in a group of men? Like when you're in a group of people and they make gay jokes or they make black jokes. How do you address that?
That's such a great question. Okay, sorry, my mom's calling. I have to go. No, no, it's a great question. It's actually it's like this path for me that's opening, because what I have to do. Okay, for the longest time, I didn't want to be anything reminded me of being female, so I was like trying to be super masculine. And now I realize this is why I'm doing this show. I have come full circle. I'm in complete acceptance. I was born female. I gave birth. I had my period, okay? I did all the things that women do. And I was a mom. And I was a grandma, okay? And I miss being a grandma. Being a grandma is different than being a grandpa. They're both fantastic, okay? And I've been a son and a daughter and a brother and a sister. I've been in every position, and it's so valuable. But what I'm doing is I'm claiming my femininity. Okay? That's how I'm doing what you asked. I'm saying, hold on, guys. Let's all take a deep breath. Let's all go into prayer. I teach classes on the autonomic nervous system, and I'm a metaphysician, and I have this belief that we have two sides of our autonomic nervous system. We have the fight or flight side, that's in the right side of the brain, and we have the rest and digest side, that's the left side of the brain. And there's written documents saying that God indwells in us through the nervous system, through the rest and digest side. Now, whether you believe that or not, it's okay. But I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why mindfulness, that's why meditation, that's why prayer, because that's what opens that side of our nervous system that not combats, but soothes the fight or flight side. And the fight or flight side is the all ego, all, demolish, tear down. But the other side is building. So that's what I'm called to do, is to say, you know what, I'm not okay with that. You shouldn't be either. And let's come in and find your own indwelling, because we all have masculine and feminine in us. Every woman has a little bit of testosterone in her. Every man has a little bit of estrogen. We were made female before we become male. We are all one. You're welcome. Someone else.
Any others? Julie.
Thank you for your presentation. It's been really wonderful. My son transitioned in his 30s, and he didn't really know anything about transgender, and we didn't either. And but he was in high school. He was always the guy in the group with his girlfriends, and he wore, for his senior picture, he wanted to wear the tuxedo. And they made him take both pictures. They did let him take that picture, but he had to take the other as well. Mm-hmm. I think, even not knowing anything about it, he knew who he was. Mm-hmm. And he also, you're talking about being, a woman, he considers himself a man, but he's very much a feminist. Mm-hmm. And he really brings the whole experience of being a woman before and into, it's just who he is. Yeah. It's very much part of him still.
That's wonderful. And tell me your name? Julie, you wrote me.
I did.
I was going to say, I think you're Julie. Yes, thank you. That's wonderful. Yeah, I really invite you to think about your genitals as just another organ in your body. Okay? They don't really make you who you are. Okay? I was watching the Winter Olympics, and there's this slalom for women going as fast as they can down this mountain. And if your genitals mattered in that way, then the commentator said, wow, her vagina's really on fire today. Right? Or, whoa, his penis really let him down today, didn't it? On the high jump, right? It doesn't play, right? It's not important. It just so happens to make new humans, you have one of these or one of those. And you need somebody outside of yourself to do that. It takes two to make a new person. But our lungs work, our kidneys work, everything else, it's working for you. And that's the biological side. But the pleasure side, the indwelling of the spirit, that's just you shining through. It's random that you got this body. It's random that some people are like this, some people are like this, whatever. And so I just invite you to just, what do I like? What brings me joy? that's the point. And hopefully your body will agree with you and help you get it done. Someone else.
Hi,
Hi
my
there.
name is Andrea,
Hi, Andrea.
and I
I'm
am very
Andrea.
strong.
You're Andrea.
And I looked up the meaning of my name when I was young, and it said manly, strong, all of that. And I was like, well, but I'm a girl. So I'm womanly and strong,
Right.
and I have become that. And
Right
that's
on.
all good. But that's not my question. How did you not choose Joey as your name? I mean,
I
I
know.
realize the Nicole, Nick, potentially, but it feels like maybe that's who you were.
I know. I grappled with it, and I thought, oh my God, I'm Joey. But there's a lot of Nick energy in my family. And so I have a great-grandfather, Grandpa Nick, and then there was Aunt Nikki, and then so-and-so Nick. And it was just, for me, I'm sentimental in that way, and I wanted to feel like I was in my family line and where I belonged. And I wouldn't have been named Joey. And I had a brother who died in utero, and he was going to be Nicholas. And so I took his name. Yeah. But thank you. Good question. Someone else.
Well, you made space for this to be okay to say in a sanctuary. And it's become a very, I'd say, common thing. Even women do this on television shows, saying, grow a pair, or that took balls. And they say it about men and women,
Yeah.
as if women don't have anything that's part of their body that brings strength. Oh, of course women do. But we always refer to balls, and that's a very strange thing in my opinion. But it is common nowadays.
Yeah.
So congratulations on getting yours, even though they're not necessary.
I have to tell you that I had testicular implants, and I got this thing called these rods that are really like giant pipe cleaners. And so if you don't want to use it, you bend it down. You want to use it, you bend it up. Okay. But I had an infection. I got an infection from it. And I had sepsis, and I had to take everything out. But I used to teach this. I was a guest lecturer at Sonoma State for a sociology class, and I would tell them that I do have these little testicles, but they're like these little hairy wallets. So I tell them I would just store quarters in them, and when I need to park, I just, and get the quarters, and the kids in the audience would be like, and then so. Mine are little hairy wallets. What can I say? But when you think about, you're right, Carl. When you think about we're having a son. What does that mean? Oh, he's going to be a big, strong, virile man. We're having a daughter. Oh, she's going to be sweet and what? Docile, nice, right? And I'm like, you know what? Have you met my daughters or my wife? Nothing docile, okay? They're ferocious in what they believe in, and thank goodness, right? So, yeah, the sexualizing of things, it's detrimental to everybody because really have some courage. Gender neutral, right? Anyone else?
Maybe I can just kind of close us, unless you had do you have a parting? Were you gonna share another?
Well, I just, what time is it? I don't want to keep people late.
We are at.
Okay. Well, I want to sing this song for you. Yeah. Okay. It's a short song. Here it is. Ta-da! Okay, it's over. No. All right. It's called Before I Became a Man. I'm looking in the mirror and liking what I see. I really don't remember this happening to me before I became a man. There's a sing-along part. Uh-huh. Before, uh-huh. I forgot where I'm in the song. Looking in the mirror and liking what I see. Before I became a man, I started loving myself right, just the way I am. My lady used to call me a really hairy chick, but that shit stopped abruptly when I got a hairy dick, unlike before I became a man. I started loving myself right, just the way I am, just the way I am. My mama always told me to reach for my dreams, to live by, yes I can. But I don't think she had any idea her little girl would become a man. Now I am so happy just being a dude. My inner life is easy, I never have to brood like before I became a man. I started loving myself right, just the way I am. That's it. Thank you so much for having me today. I brought some of my albums and my books. They're out in the hallway, and if you want me to sign one for a loved one or something, I'd be happy to do that. Okay, and I'll see you out there.
Can I just say just a couple of things? One, I want to notice and love like the discomfort of like being in our sanctuary and singing and saying words that have probably never been said here before, and I'm learning to like love that, like we're saying this, aren't we? And this is happening, okay. And I just want to notice that and like to lean into that rather than to recoil. Secondly, I just want to point out we as a congregation have claimed ourselves to be an open and affirming congregation in the United Church of Christ. When we first did this, we were not explicitly thinking about transgender people. It was mainly around sexual orientation. And I just think what you've brought to us helps me, and I hope helps all of us, understand more fully what it means to be open and affirming, not only of different sexual orientations, but also of different gender identities and expressions. So thank you for kind of moving us even just a few steps even more forward in being open and affirming. And thirdly, I also want to point out our congregation, because of the donations of the people out here, all of you, we offer a comprehensive sexuality education called Our Whole Lives, Sexuality and Our Faith, which is an affirming, the curriculum affirms a lot, everything that Nick has shared with us.
I was trained in teaching that.
And you were trained in teaching it. And so in many ways, our young people, because they've had that, are even further out ahead of the rest of us. And I know there's been some conversation about offering an adult segment of OWL, and we're working on that. We need some facilitators, so if anybody, Spirit is planting it in you to say, I would be a facilitator of Adult OWL here at Community Church, you can let me or Pastor Rachel know that. So I just wanted to share those things. And finally, I wonder, could we offer a blessing to you?
Absolutely.
As kind of a last piece? And would it be
Wonderful.
okay if I place my hand on your
Absolutely.
shoulder? And if you'd like, you can raise a hand or both hands in a sign of blessing. Gracious God, you are loving, and you created us, all of us, out of love. And you created us as people to be on a journey. And we're so thankful today that Nick has shared so much of his journey with us. And we pray that in hearing and laughing along with and crying along with and singing along with Nick's journey, we also can affirm the journey that each of us are on in our relationship to our own identities, our own sense of gender, our own genitalia, our own relationships. Thank you, God, that we are on a journey together. And God, we pray for transgender people in our wider society who, by and large, do not feel safe and accepted. And we pray that we in the Christian church, who understand you to be a God of overwhelming love, would do our part to make sure that every transgender person knows that they are deeply loved and accepted for exactly who they are and who they are becoming. God, I ask your blessing upon Nick. This really is a ministry that he is sharing with us and with the wider community, his story. So continue to fill him with strength and inspiration, with the spirit of humor and of music, as he continues to bless all who have ears to hear of a love that really, really is this big and this amazing. It is in Christ's name I ask it. Amen.
Thank you all very much.
Join me in thanking Nick Lawrence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to meet any of you out in the hallway.